Zoe here, and do you know what I love? Indie video games. Honestly, I think they give the player a more unique gaming experience despite bugs or graphics that don't push your PC or chosen gaming console to the limit. I chose to phrase it that way because calling them bad would be inaccurate and also kind of insulting to the creators, so not pushing the limit, I think, is a better way to phrase it. People work with what they have when they're in indie studios, and what they have is not a bottomless budget. They also don't have corporate sponsors breathing down their necks telling them that their game has to be open world and full of microtransactions with the season pass and whatever else is gonna make the game more profitable. So they can focus more on the experience that they want to create. So today I want to talk about some of my favorite indie games, and I also may mention some that are in a similar genre, but we'll cross that bridge when they get there. Also, I got a new chair, so that way that when I shift around in it, the squeaking doesn't pick up in the audio. Hooray! It's about time I got to that, if I'm honest. First up is I Was a Teenage Exocolonist. I would describe this game as a deck-building RPG life sim. Basically, the game starts when the player character is 10 years old. I shall refer to them as Soul from now on because it's a shortened version of the default names. Yes, you can name them whatever you want, but we're gonna stick with Soul for simplicity. Soul is part of a group of people leaving the Earth to travel through a wormhole leading to another planet named Vertumna. I think that's how that's pronounced. The game doesn't have voiced audio, so it could be wrong. This journey took about 20 years, so Soul was born around the midpoint, along with a bunch of other major characters: Anemone, Cal, Mars, Dis, Tangent, and Tammy. At the start of the game, you get to pick who from this list is your best friend, and looking at the portraits, I had to pick Anemone, at least for my first playthrough. She definitely gives off best friend energy. I honestly do love all the characters though, and they will always be my friends in every playthrough, although I may not prioritize maxing out the relationships depending on what I'm trying to accomplish during the run. And I do mean run. In this game, we are in a time loop. Starting at age 10, the player gets to play until they're age 20. After that, the game will give you an epilogue based on the choices that you have made throughout the game, and then you die and start the process all over again. As you discover things and avoid disasters, they become easier to accomplish in the future because Soul will remember having done so in a past life. I suppose I should mention the deck building aspect of this game. As you complete events, you will get cards with a number on them to add to your deck. You use this deck to either succeed or fail challenges. Your cards have to reach a total value depending on the game year and the challenge difficulty of, the challenge you're undergoing, and it can vary quite a lot. The cards are basically played with poker rules in terms of scoring, and it's quite shrimple really, but also quite satisfying. And when I fail, I am deeply hurt. My ego can barely handle it. For a game that's $25, I have spent quite a lot of time playing it, like over 50 hours, and also as of writing this script, it's 50% off on Steam, so if it piques your interest, you should check it out. I think that the winter sale ends on January 2nd, so there might not be a whole lot of time. I wanted to base the drawing I'm doing on the title screen. Basically, once you max out your relationship with one of the characters, they will appear on the title screen. I should mention, certain characters have relationship meters, bars, whatever, that you can fill up to 100. I've tried to go negative. I don't think you can. I think it just goes at 0. Anyways, I personally have the 6 childhood friends and Sim, who I have yet to mention. Sim appears around the halfway point in the game, along with Rex, Nomi, and Vance. Along with them is misleading, but I don't really want to spoil major game events, so, along with, I guess. It's more fun to experience them anyways. Aside from that, I want to gush about these characters because I love them all, except Vance. He is my eternal enemy, and if he didn't have a portrait, I would try and find a way to get him killed in-game. I don't care if he has redeeming qualities, I can't forgive him for treating Anemone poorly. I won't spoil how or why, but know that I hate him with my entire being. Moving on. Anemone, or as the option to give her a nickname, Nem, is my absolute favorite. Best girl, wife, strong, loyal, great at sports ball, accepts eggs as gifts in trying times, could kick my ass. All plus sides, really. I can't afford to romance her every run, but on the runs I am trying to break the time loop, I definitely do. It's a canon event, a part of my idealized perfect ending. She's actually the best that ever was. And I'm probably starting to sound like Ray gushing over Claire from I'm in Love with a Villainess. Not to worry though, because I should probably be moving on. This is a sad depression boy and my second favorite character. He is extremely bad at socializing and really hates being inside the colony walls. He really comes to life when he's out exploring the wilderness, observing the wildlife, and learning about the world. Despite his standoffish attitude, he truly does love the world he found himself in and wants to be a part of it in a way that is very difficult, that is very different to the way that the colony does it. Also, he may become a domestic terrorist depending on your choices, so, you know, he's a bit of a mess. Since we're on the topic of characters who are a mess, let's talk about Tangent, Dis's twin sister. She's extremely intelligent and loves working in the lab. Tangent can come across as cold because she tries to do things in a manner that is most logical. As you get to know her or her brother, you actually discover she is trans femme, and honestly, I love the rep. Also, she has the potential to become a war criminal. She's just like me, for real, for real. It took me a few runs to truly appreciate Mars. She is a mean girl, so I was at first a bit put off by her, but I also started to like her more as I got to know her. She's just, a girl boss doing girl boss things, and is quite relevant to ensuring the colony goes in a positive direction in the epilogue. Well, depending on the choices you make, and how you would view it as positive. What changes are positive is up to you. In my canon runs, she is definitely a must. Also, the hair of her adult design was a pain in the rear to draw. So many braids. So many. Cal is a strong and dependable farmer, unless you want him to do a violence. He's a bit of a pacifist. He sticks pretty well to that despite the pressure from the security team to try and convince him to do violence. And despite him being romanceable, I never will be able to bring myself to do it because it would involve breaking up him and Tammy. And I mean, I'm not a monster, so hopefully I don't really need anything for the story or for story beats. I hope I don't discover something that I need to get by breaking them up for future runs, is essentially what I'm trying to say. Speaking of Tammy, let's speak of Tammy. She is quiet and scares very easily, but is definitely the kindest character in the colony, or at least the characters that you actually meet. There's a bunch of others that are the unnamed masses. That's probably the worst way to think of it, but they don't have portraits or speaking lines, so they're just kind of there. She loves kids and picking people up when they're down. Cal and Tammy do really make a sweet couple, and characters who I've always wanted to help whenever I can when I interact with them. Lastly, we got Rex and Nomi Nomi. These two are best friends, and I unfortunately don't know much about them other than they're awesome. Rex is a hot dog boy who builds stuff and is great at hugs. He's the only character you can walk up to and hug, like in the game. You talk to him, there's a dialogue option to give him a hug. Every time you pass him. You don't even have to stop. You can end the conversation and go right back and hug him again. It's great, really. And Nomi Nomi is a hot non-binary pal who wears bright colors and loves art and anime. They can also be found in the robotics lab or engineering classroom. And finally, Vance is a pile of garbage in a human suit. Literally the worst there ever was. I could go on all day about how much I hate him, but neither of us have time for me to do that. So let's just leave it at he sucks. Since we're speaking of leaving things be, this is the end of the drawing, and I'll have to transition into another yap session about a different game. I should also mention all of the characters have their own, special genetic mod that they've had since birth. Which is why we have, a dog boy, and some others that are more obvious than others. Now we're moving on. This game is a 4-player PvE horde shooter. No, it's not Deep Rock Galactic, though that is a great game. Rock and Stone! If you thought Helldivers 2 instead, you'd also be wrong, despite my love for spreading democracy to giant bugs and communist robots. I also did hear that they added a new faction for us to fight against, so that's kind of a plus side. I should really dive back in and see how they are. It's not Left 4 Dead 2. Wait, was that an indie game? I googled it. No, it wasn't. So I don't know why I thought of it. It was made by Valve. No, we're doing Darktide in this house, which was made by Fat Shark, which is a indie studio. I love the 40k setting because it's either the funniest lore ever because of how grim it is, or it's just horrifying if you've imagined living in those conditions. For example, in Space Marine 2, there's a mission where you have to get like a big missile or something brought to a certain location, and it's being transported by like a train car. You play the mission and it sounds like you're redirecting the rails for an automated system, but no. When you actually see the thing moving, it's being pulled by a bunch of servitors using like a few chains. If you don't know what a servitor is, servitors are humans who have been lobotomized and then turned into cyborgs for the purpose of basic labor. Or, operating a vending machine. Or opening and closing doors. Basically, it's truly an awful experience. The character you play, regardless of class, is a criminal who was granted the opportunity to serve in Inquisitor Grendel's warband. Or, as I like to call him, Inquisitor Grendel. Basically, you're thrown into suicidal missions with the intent of investigating the Chaos Cult of Nurgle on Atoma Prime, or more specifically, the hive city of Tertium. You fight zombies, cultists, traitors, heretics, mutants, and even demons. As for this crime you've committed, it could be as simple as complaining about your corpse starch rations to burning down an entire hat block because you thought they were heretics. It can vary quite a lot. It doesn't even have to be true. Innocence is hardly relevant in the eyes of the Imperial bureaucracy. The concept of the game loop is simple too. Do the objective, kill the enemies of humanity, and try not to die. The missions you go on are quite varied in terms of those objectives, from destroying stim production lines that were designed to spread the pox virus, raiding enemy supply stations, assassinating high-value enemy targets, securing factories and forges, stopping what I assume to be a greater demon summoning ritual, and even landing onto a moving train to disable it before it reaches an Imperial-controlled station and explodes. You may be seen as some of the lowest scum in the Imperium, but at least you're having a fun ride, fun yet horrifying. As for the image I'm currently working on, I wanted to draw a Beast of Nurgle. This is a boss that can appear in a mission depending on the difficulty and how quickly you're moving through the level. The most of them that I've seen on a single mission was on a difficulty 4 mission, and during an event that allowed basic enemies to spawn with like gross tentacle limbs. We had to kill 5 of them, and I don't know if that was because of the difficulty or the event or both. Thankfully it wasn't all at the same time, but wow was I panicking. Somehow we still beat the mission, and I was emotionally exhausted after that. For those of you who don't know what a Beast of Nurgle is, it's basically a giant disease slug with arms. It doesn't just smack you with its arms or tail though, that would be boring. It likes to projectile vomit on you, and if you get too close to it, it will vor you to death. I mean, depending on your personal tastes, it's not the worst way to go. I find this demon funny because it genuinely thinks it's playing with you and gets sad when you die because you played the game wrong. Eventually, it'll kill enough people by accident that it gains depression. Not quite sure what happens to it when it does gain depression, but it's probably not good for anything it comes across. If you do kill one, it gets returned to the Gardens of Nurgle, where it gets super pissed because you killed it instead of playing with it. It's filled with so much hate, it transforms into a giant wasp that, guess what, spreads disease. Also, it's still very angry. That'll be fun when it becomes a boss fight in later missions. I hope they add it as a boss fight in later missions. The other bosses can spawn in are Plague Ogrins, which, those are Ogrins that spread disease. Spreading disease is kind of Nurgle's thing. I don't think I've said that, but, I hope it's become obvious at this point. Chaos Spawn are a creature that eventually shows up wherever the Chaos Gods are spreading their, chaos. I think. I don't really know much about the lore of them other than they're like a tentacle ball with legs. Then there's the demon host. They won't bother you unless you shoot it, and if you do shoot it, it will kill you, then leave. So don't shoot it unless your team is ready for it. If you're not convinced you can take it down, just walk around it. And a demon host is basically a person who has allowed a demon to inhabit their body. There's also a bunch of enemies that are not bosses, but definitely make your life worse, but I'm not really going to get into those here, except for the Poxhound. Even the dogs are heretics. Well, that's basically Darktide in a nutshell. Overall, fun game, and has been one of my recent hyperfixations. That's basically it for this episode. Not that there haven't been more indie games I've enjoyed recently, I just wanted to get this video out before 2025 because it's been in my head for a few months, and you know, the holidays were busy, and it's taken a while to get this done. And if these games weren't up your alley, you could always try one of these other games that I wanted to make art for, but again, didn't really have time. Another Crab's Treasure, a Souls-like game about a hermit crab trying to get their shell back. Dungeons of Hinterberg, a puzzle and monster slaying game. Fields of Mystria, a Stardew Valley-like game, except the characters are otter. And last but not least, Little Goody Two Shoes, a horror game with Yuri. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, leave a like and subscribe for more. See you in the next video I make. Bye!